Hi. How's everybody doing? Yes, yes, yes. Some of you may have caught my earlier video where I was sitting here going through some files and clearing out my head and clearing out some clutter in my filing cabinets and so on. Well, you never know what you're going to come across, and I came across something that I think is share worthy. So I decided to, put on a dress and take off my nightgown and come on and make this more official. I was going through my filing cabinet and I found this little booklet that I printed several years ago, probably in 2002. And it's called Living the Life You Were Born to Live. Can God Trust You in This Place? Can God, y'all probably can't see that, but anyway, Can God Trust You in This Place is one of the pieces in there. And when I went through and read it, I was like, oh my, this was like way back there, 9, 10 years ago. This is 1920. Shoot, my math is off. 19 years ago. And this is so deep. I'm like, I didn't even know I was that deep back then. I mean, I'm not bragging or anything, but it's like, it's good to go back and see where you were at a certain point in time, because sometimes you don't realize how strong you were, and then sometimes you don't realize how weak you were and how much growth you have made over the years. So I always like to look back and see where I was at a particular time. And back at this time when I printed this booklet, let me see if it has a date on it. Man, I don't know. I know it's got an old picture of me right there on the back. Let me see what the date is. It don't even have a date. Oh, 2003. There it is. Copyright 2003. Okay, so that's a while ago. But anyway, let me get into the message, because it's a little bit longer than my usual messages. Can God trust you in this place? And remember now, this is me writing back in 2003. Back in 2003. This is what I wrote. When's the last time you asked God for something that you knew you weren't ready for? How often do we wish we were in a place more elaborate, more prestigious than where we find ourselves? How many times have we gotten exactly what we wanted and then realized that we couldn't keep it because it conflicted with God's plan? In order to qualify for welfare, you have to admit that you're poor or that you need it. To qualify for bankruptcy, you have to admit that you are broke. To be admitted to a hospital, you have to admit that you are sick. And of course, to go to heaven, you have to admit that you are hell-bound and you are a sinner. Okay, so those are just some things that have to happen if you want to go from one place to another. We are willing to do the first three. The last one, we don't want to do that. The fourth one, in order to go to heaven, we don't want to admit that we are sinners and that we are hell-bound. So that's a tough one. We are too busy trying to hide the fact that we have problems. That's why we can't admit it. It's not easy for a decent guy to admit that he's a sinner. And it's hard for a pretty good girl to confess a spiritual destitution. Oh, it isn't hard at first. When we first meet Christ, when life is a mess and the future is bleak, when we don't have anything to lose because we have lost it all, oh, it's not hard to admit it at first. But then, down the line somewhere, by God's grace, things get better. The bills get paid, the dog comes home, the pantry gets full, the chains are removed. And the face we see in the mirror in the morning has a smile on it. And with time, the person in the mirror grows a bit proud, a bit puffy, a bit, shall we say, cocky. Oh, it rang a bell for me many years. We forget where we were. We forget what God has done. And we gradually begin to think that God is lucky to have us on his side. And we begin to see salvation not as a toss of the life preserver to the sinking, but as a journey in a rowboat. With God's grace handling one oar and our good deeds handling the other one. It's not that Jesus isn't necessary. It's just that Jesus isn't enough. Slowly but surely, we begin believing in the doctrine of salvation by Jesus plus. Jesus plus good deeds. Jesus plus the right doctrine. Jesus plus the right Bible translation. Jesus plus the right charitable organizations. Unfortunately, today, there are many of us who still fake the funk by going through the motions of religion, but don't know how to call on God for ourselves. And I decided a long time ago that I was sick and tired of depending on someone else to intercede for me. Now, I wrote this in 2003. I was feeling that way in 2003. I wanted to know how to reach God for myself. I wanted to know what it felt like to truly trust God. In the midnight hour, when it was too late to wake somebody up, when I didn't know who to call, when I had called the same person too many times. I wanted to be able to talk to God when I felt like it, the way I felt like it. I didn't want somebody else to translate for me. I wanted to do it for myself. And I didn't just want to know this in a time of crisis. I wanted to know how to depend and trust on God on a daily basis for my needs. Can God trust you in this place? That's the title. Do you know him well enough for him to trust you in the place that you are trying to get to? Do you know him? Do you know him when you are not chained and you have all the freedom to do what you want to do? When all is going well? When I prepared for my 2002 conference, this is back in Virginia. I'm writing this in 2003 now. When I prepared for my 2002 conference, I tried my best to make it my last. But God said, you are not going out like that. So I went back one more year because I wanted everyone to know how God had blessed me. Since I had shared so much pain in 2002 and also in the 5 previous years, I couldn't leave people wondering what had happened to me. My marriage ended in 2001, but now I was speaking from my healing and not from my hurt. The home that I lost that same year was precious to me, but I realized that it was a house and not a home. When you put your faith in the world, you are asking for trouble. The world owes you nothing and will let you know that. They will let you know that. There comes a time in life when the world can only do so much. And you will find yourself flat on your face, crying out to God to keep you from losing your mind. Remember now, I'm talking about something that I wrote in 2003. I want to bring my listener back because someone may have came in the middle of the video. Here I am in 2003 when I sat on the 3rd floor of my apartment on Chamberlain Avenue for 9 months. I didn't sit on the floor, I'm sorry. When I sat in my 3rd floor apartment. 9 months, overlooking another apartment. That's what was out my window. Another apartment and a parking lot, not a view. Oh no, not a view. I knew what he was doing. I hated that apartment when I first moved. But you know what? In that apartment, I learned what it meant to truly trust God. And I know it was nothing but God that kept me and showed me how to take my life back from the enemy. I had called every friend that I knew. I had talked to everybody who would listen, co-workers, family members, everybody. I have read every book that I could get my hands on about inspiration, motivation, and self-development, everything. I prayed every prayer and called on every promise that I could remember in the Bible. And at one time, I even asked God to just take me, because I felt that would be easier for everybody. But he didn't do that. And I thank him today. He made me be still and take a serious look at my past and my future. Not much the future that he was holding for me, but the future that I was headed to based on my lifestyle. Can God trust you in this place? That's the question that I asked myself in 2003. That's a good question to ask yourself today in 2020. Can God trust you in this place? God couldn't trust me. I wasn't even doing the Jerry speak. I wasn't doing it because my life had broken down and I had no message. I needed a message. Jesus wasn't enough. I wanted Jesus plus. Jesus plus my old life. Jesus plus the world. And for many years, I had been talking to people about having faith and trusting God. And I must admit, it was hard for me to take my own advice. But let me tell you what God did in 2003. He put me in a position where I had to truly practice what I preach. He didn't do this just so I would have to depend on him. He did this also to show me how much I am loved. I mean, my whole world tumbled down in 2001. So I needed to be loved. That was the hardest thing for me to get used to. Not coming home to someone who loved me when I lost my marriage. I had to learn to give love to myself. And that's what God has been doing. He had been teaching me how to love me. I was looking for love out there. But true love starts within. And then in March 2003, I had surgery. And I spent 4 weeks at home recuperating by myself. Now, by this time, I'm in a new apartment, much nicer. I sat in my new apartment with a view, nice view. And I thank God that I didn't have the surgery while I was in that other apartment on Chamberlain Avenue, overlooking another apartment in a parking lot. I thanked him for my beautiful space with plenty of parking where friends could visit me while I recuperated. He showed me friends that I didn't realize I had. He showered me with so much love. Love that I didn't ask for, but so desperately needed. I watched God take care of me as my friends and my family and cards and money and food came pouring in. And as soon as I realized that I was going to, I said to God, before all of this happened, I said to God, now you know, I have 2 part-time jobs. And I'm going to remind you, this is in 2003. I have 2 part-time jobs, and one of them is not going to pay me while I'm out of work. And you also know that I have no health insurance, Lord. So if there has ever been a time that I need to trust you, then it is now. I calculated my expenses and I told God I need $1,000 to give me peace of mind before I go in this hospital. And once I put it in his hands, I left it there. And he showed me how to make it happen. I ain't giving no details, but he worked it out. The night before I entered the hospital, I received a card from a coworker with $50 inside. That $50 gift brought my total blessing to $1,080. Just look at God. I paid all of my bills before I went into the hospital. God is able, but you have to know him and you have to trust him. Most of all, he has to be able to trust you in that place. Yes, I have enjoyed reading this message all over again that I wrote in 2003. It ministered to me because I needed to hear that right now. So God gave me all that I asked for and more. Not only did I get that financial assistance from friends and family, but when I got the hospital bill, based on my financial need and my financial situation, I was able to receive financial assistance and the bill was approved 100% because of my income level. The blessings didn't stop there. I continued to receive cards and money once I came home. And God knew that he could trust me in that place. That was in 2003. My question for you today is, can God trust you in this place right now? Can he trust you to the place that you are asking him to take you? Do you know him well enough to know that you can handle where he's taking you? Can he trust you in that place? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you on my next video. I'm going to continue going through these files because I don't know what else God has in here for me, and maybe something else for you too. Bye now.